Peter Moore is the GM of PGG Wrightson Livestock. The hot issue out there at the moment is live cattle export. Now, Peter, I know that righties weren't involved in the tragedy around the capsized shipment to China, but you are in the business of procuring cattle for live export. Where's the industry at the moment on this one? Good afternoon, by the way.
Well, thanks, Jamie. I think the first thing to say is, this is a marine tragedy. It's a marine accident that's happened, and we've got to have certainly feel for all the people involved in it. And yes, we didn't have any animals on that boat, but we do procure livestock from time to time for shipments. And there's a number of cattle in quarantine awaiting boats to collect them over the next month or so. And that's probably where the pressure point is at the moment, until MPI and the government make a call on whether they're going to reduce the restrictions and let those cattle be loaded at the point when they should be, which is probably towards the end of September.
My spies tell me that there's something like in excess of 20,000 animals currently in quarantine, currently waiting to get onto these boats, 2 from Napier, 2 from Timaru. Am I a mile away?
Our information is that there's probably 3 shipments that are in quarantine at the moment, but there's others ready to go into quarantine, which would be somewhere around 15,000. But I think the key message here is that there is cattle in quarantine are waiting to go on ships, and everyone's patiently waiting to see what the government's going to do. I come back to my point before, it was a marine accident that created this issue, and sadly, for all involved, it was a pretty tough experience and still an ongoing tough experience. But I think that what we need at some point is for the government to make a call on which way they're going to go, because it's important so that the people can plan.
Have the farmers been paid for these animals, or do they only get paid when they arrive in China? How does that work? Because basically they're getting paid twice as much for these live export heifers as they would in the sale yard. So someone, if this live export doesn't go ahead or doesn't get the green light, is going to take a bit of a haircut.
Yeah, that's true, Jamie. I think that there'll be different payment options that are for different companies. Most payments are made at the time cattle go into PEI or soon after they go into quarantine. I'm not privy to what other companies do, so some farmers may have been paid and others may not have been, and it'll be different for different shipments and different types of contracts. The exporters normally get paid, and I think you're aware I've been involved in the export industry for Fonterra a few years ago. Normally would get paid at the time the ship was about to leave New Zealand. They'd get a substantial part of the payment. So, there's some big money involved here with the cattle that are sitting in quarantine if they are unable to go. And I think you're right. At some point, one way, there could be people lose out here.
Is the industry working closely together to lobby government on this?
Certainly the exporters are. I mean, we're only supplying to the exporters, so it's difficult for us to get heavily involved in that point, and at this stage we're not. But I certainly know the exporters are working closely with MPI and the government around their real focus is obviously the cattle that are in pre-export isolation at the moment.
Farmers are flat out on farm at the moment. The livestock farmers, they're lambing and they're calving and that sort of stuff. It is very much the off-season for the sale yards, but we are getting indications that there's downward pressure on livestock prices and red meat prices for the coming season. What are you seeing?
Yeah, we're just starting to see certainly some bit of downward pressure in the sale yards, and certainly seeing, I would call it flat at the moment. There's certainly, after 2 or 3 years outside of the COVID and the drought, certainly prices were always trending slightly upward. We're certainly not seeing that at the moment, and if you look at the messages coming out of the food service industry, which is largely where the high value meats go, we do certainly have some challenges, I think, coming over the next season, and it'll be a different world we live in, I think, to what we've had the last few years. So I suppose just a bit of caution out there at the moment as to what's going to come next. But fundamentally, there's still strong demand for our products, Jamie, out in New Zealand. It's just that there's not the demand for that high end.
Yeah, and we've also got to deal with a rising exchange rate. Just a final comment from you. We're in level 2 at the moment around the country. Auckland has dropped to level 2. How difficult has it been for you guys in the sale yards to operate under level 2, or has it largely been business as usual?
Yeah, level 2 is pretty close to business as usual. You know, we've got to have all the tracking and tracing in place. Social distancing is really important. So there are some challenges, particularly in rostrums and things, about making sure people do socially distance. And I just got a note this morning from one of our sale yard managers saying we need to get a message out to the business again, just around and reminding people of their, making sure they sign in, making sure the social distancing and that's all taking place. So it's not business as usual at level 2, but we can manage it. Level 3 is obviously much more challenging, and off level 4 you just simply can't operate sale yards. So.
Bring on level 1. Peter Moore, GM of PGG Wrightson Livestock. Thanks for your time on The Country.
Thanks.